Today, we're starting with a question we get all the time. Do natural or herbal remedies actually help allergies? Or is that mostly hype? All that and more on this week's episode of My Allergist Dad.
Throat tickle or itchy eye, skin rash or a patch of hives. If allergies got you down bad, then just ask my allergist, My Allergist Dad.
Welcome to My Allergist Dad. I'm Drew. I'm a comedian in Los Angeles, and I'm joined, as always, by my dad, perennial top doc for allergy and immunology in Rhode Island, Dr. Z. Hey, Dad.
Hey, Drew.
How you doing?
I'm doing great. I look forward to these sessions with you.
I look forward to them too. So, Dad, before we get into today's topic, I had a question. So, my sister, your daughter, Abby, sent me a video online that was posing a theory, or I don't know how researched it is, but the idea that drying your wet clothes inside brings like 2 liters of moisture into the air indoors and can cause a lot of allergies, mold, sickness. Have you read up on any of this? Do you have any thoughts on the downsides or implications or bad effects of air drying your clothes inside your living space?
That's not something we ever talk about. And I really think it's where you're doing it. The whole idea is that moisture, humidity increase certain allergens like dust mite and mold. I don't think if you're air drying wet, thick, a lot of wet clothes, it might increase the humidity. Dust mites thrive when the humidity is above 50%. And so if you are at 35 and you increase it to 38 or 40, it's not going to make a difference. Also, if it's short term and where you're doing it, if it's in the basement and you're not down the basement ever, then it's a non-issue.
So if it's in your bedroom, then that might cause some issues. Or if it's in your...
I don't think it should be in your bedroom. I think you have to be careful in the bathroom if things are always wet in there.
What about like hanging a towel in the bathroom?
It's probably fine. I mean, it really depends if your bathroom is, you open the door to your bathroom and you air it out, or is it always damp and humid in there? I don't think it's the towels. I think it's the shower. And if you're not using the vents. I do think that people with bad pollen allergies who hang their sheets and towels out. I don't think people do this anymore, but in the old days, they used to hang them outside for that fresh air smell. They're collecting a lot of pollens and possibly mold spores.
It's funny you say that because this video was suggesting air hang your clothes outside on your balcony, which is an interesting suggestion to me because I know that a lot of buildings, that's going to get you in trouble with your building management or your HOA. And I also think that it's funny to hear that you're saying there would be an unintended effect if you do have allergies of attracting pollen onto your clothes or your sheets.
Well, that depends on the time of year. What's interesting, and I always use that word,
we love that word.
I remember years ago, our neighbors at our first house, they used to hang outside a window their throw rugs. And they used to hang it outside, and they used to have the sun would hit it.
With a broom?
No, they didn't do the broom. That's like the old movies. But maybe they did. They probably shook them. But the truth is, when the sun air dried those throw rugs,
they were killing the physical sun or like their child?
The physical sun. Yes, they were using their kid with child labor. Anyway, so the sun. So when they were letting those rugs hang out the window and it was dry out and the sun was beating on it, it was killing the dust mites. So it's kind of what they used to do in the old days without realizing it. And that's something
sun kills dust mites?
Dust mites die because of lack of humidity. So if you're drying out these rugs with the sun outside in the cold. The other thing is I used to tell patients that one thing they could take advantage of in the winter when it's 0 degrees, 10 degrees, to take all the kids' stuffed animals and everything and put them in a garbage bag and just leave them outside for like 24, 48 hours. Because it's like you can freeze the dust mites, you can kill them in hot water and hot cycle. So it's kind of interesting how you can.
Well, we have that video of my nephew watching all of his stuffed animals go through a laundry machine cycle. So if that was on a
hopefully it was in hot cycle.
So if it was on a hot cycle, then that's taking all the dust mites out of his stuffed
Correct.
Animals.
And that's why you want to wash the bed linens weekly in hot cycle.
Hot cycle. Okay. Hot water, sun, cold. Temperature, dry. That's how you get rid of some of your dust mites.
Yeah.
This is good intel. This is a good transition. We're talking about practical or non-medicinal ways to limit allergies by getting rid of dust mites through the sun, through your washing machine, through the cold. What are some natural herbal remedies to allergies?
We always joke how I say something is interesting. And one of the things when we have these conversations, I'm learning as well as you're learning, or hopefully the listeners are learning. And I've talked to you about how I see this when I see my patients, it's the kid that is the good eater and they don't have allergies. And I remember once I encouraged a patient to go on Juice Plus because that gives you 11 servings of fruits and vegetables.
So for context and explanation, he's saying often when a patient comes in and it's a child and they have a lot of allergy symptoms, they're typically a picky eater. Whereas if they have a sibling who is a good eater and eats a lot of different things, they have fewer allergies. And he's talking about a supplement you can take that exposes, it contains a lot of elements of various fruits and vegetables.
Correct. And I'll get to that in a second. But I remember once a patient said to me, our son missed 20 days of school. And just changing the diet and implementing that supplement, which gives them the equivalent of 11 servings of fruits and vegetables, he only missed 2 days of school instead of 20. And when you were asking me about natural remedies, and I was thinking of the herbalist who, there was this Mao Wang or something that was a bronchodilator, but I was thinking of some of the ones that I often suggest to patients. And the simple ones are quercetin with bromelain. Quercetin is a herbal treatment that's anti-inflammatory that has good antihistamine properties. And bromelain comes from pineapple leaves and has properties itself, but also helps slow down the breakdown of quercetin.
Would you get these at like an herbal goods store in the back of a Whole Foods?
Whole Foods has it. And nettle tea, which is a natural antihistamine. Some of my patients...
Oh, I like nettle tea.
It's a good one.
Nobody else likes it in my family. Do you like it?
I've had it. Yeah, it's not bad. Another one that sometimes patients find if they take this DAO enzyme, it breaks down histamine quicker. But I went online, and the reason I'm telling you this is so interesting, because I brought up at our previous podcast about how many of my patients who come to America and adapt the Western diet, their allergies increase, where in their countries, they didn't have allergies. They were eating more natural. It's not just the Mediterranean diet. We talked about the Cape Verdeans and everything being fresh. So what was interesting, again, is that quercetin, it's found in onions, kale, broccoli, blueberries, and acts as a natural anti-inflammatory.
Is it an antioxidant?
It has some anti-inflammatory and antihistamine properties, but think about it. Onions, kale, broccolis, blueberries. A lot of these foods, like blueberries, are antioxidants. Quercetin is anti-inflammatory, but it also has antihistamine properties. I have recommended it and have some patients with chronic hives taking quercetin with bromelain. They have not needed the antihistamines. That has naturally controlled their hives.
So if I have a nice kale, blueberry, onion smoothie every morning, I might limit my histamine responses.
You might have less allergies. And the point is that it's alignment, whatever it is. There are some people, there was a woman who is a consultant nutritionist. She treats everything, uses food as medicine. She even is able to, through her diet, reduce skin burning from the sun because she uses natural antioxidants.
Is it okay if these foods are boiled or cooked? Does it have
I
to be
don't know.
raw?
You're asking me questions that are way beyond mine. I think the raw are fine, but the point I'm saying is that it's more of a state of being. When you start making these the predominant part of your diet and not processed foods, which are inflammatory, you're less reactive, you're less histamine producing, and you find, and patients say it all the time, they're less bothered by their allergies. So it's natural and it's coming through the diet, or you can add the supplements. We talked about sting nettle. Another one is called butterbur. Butterbur reduces nasal congestion, it's inflammation, but you need to it emphasizes this because it has potential problems. And butterbur, I guess, is the leaf that they use to package. It refers to an extracts of butterbur plant, but you need to get PA free, which stands for Petacites hybridus free, that have been processed to remove that naturally occurring peroxidine alkaloids, which are toxic compounds that can affect your liver. So I don't know if I would jump to butterbur unless you really get a good product. The other one is just what we talked about is probiotics. Probiotics, they help with your gut health and they help with healthier microbiome.
Would yogurt or kimchi count as probiotics, or do you mean particularly supplement versions of probiotics?
I think that if you're doing kimchi, if you're doing, kefir and all those things on a regular basis, you're creating a healthier background because that in conjunction with vitamin C. So eating a lot of foods high in vitamin C. Vitamin C also helps with allergies. Another one is spirulina.
Would you say that as far as the probiotic, is that about creating a healthier gut biome so you have a healthier gut lining so that you're not having the same, access points that we talked about and sensitivity interactions with the stomach lining?
The mucosal lining. I
Yeah.
think the probiotics do help with that, but they also communicate with the Treg cells that play a role with inflammation.
What are Treg cells?
Treg cells are part of your immune system.
Are they the same as T cells?
They're a type of T cell and they're positive for allergies. In other words, they help reduce allergies. When we do our immunotherapy, our allergy drops, our sublingual or previously allergy shots, ultimately you're bringing your Treg cells back in line. They regulate, they improve tolerance. So the more you have a good imbalanced Treg cells, your asthma and your allergies are better. But the point I'm saying is that patients shouldn't, and this is where I feel that people miss out. They shouldn't focus on, I want to eat a lot of quercetin. I want to eat a lot of turmeric. They do help. But what they need to focus on is the whole team here. The team of, again, getting back into alignment. When you eat a healthy diet filled with antioxidant fruits and vegetables, they have antihistamine properties. They reduce inflammation in the body. When there's less inflammation in the body, these allergy cells called mast cells are less reactive. When they're less reactive, you're having less histamine effect.
So it's a lot of lifestyle. It's
weird.
Like whole foods diet, high, vegetable, vitamin, antioxidant diet. Probably, I would imagine one factor is getting good sleep to lower your cortisol levels, lowering your stress overall, and lower stress can probably help create a better system.
Right, but you can't just focus on that. In other words, you can't have allergy antibodies to dust mite, mold, and cat and eat a fantastic diet while you sleep with 3 cats and have high dust mite levels.
As in, you have to look at your lifestyle. You're not just going to be able to combat everything with just lifestyle.
Correct. You need to reduce your allergen load.
You also have to look at the environments you're putting yourself in.
It's all part of it. If you're allergic to cats and you're constantly around a cat, You can be eating quercetin all day, but maybe you need to address your cat allergies.
But aren't there instances where, like, being around a cat or a dog, you ultimately desensitize yourself?
That's if you're always around it. I saw a patient today this is an interesting case and goes along with what you talk about. And she kept saying no. And then she said, well, now that I think of it, she came to me since last spring. She had gone away on vacation and she had severe allergies when she went to visit family that had dogs, but she felt it had to do with the pollen being out. And since she's come home, even though she's not around the dogs at that trip, she's still having allergies. But what was interesting is her allergy testing was negative to the pollens. She's positive to cat, dog, and she has cats. And she was away from her cats. And now, like the college student, she's reacting to her cats. That seems to be why she's having constant allergy symptoms now. The dog, always in different environments, dogs set her off, but being away from the cat, she lost the desensitization benefit. So,
which
yes,
is something we've talked about.
Yeah, it all comes back to the same things we talk about in previous episodes. Isn't that interesting?
It's very interesting. So another thing that I've heard people talk about as a way to limit their environmental allergies is, different honeys like Manuka honey, because it comes from pollination of certain flowers, and if you get local honey, I guess that's one thing, is getting local honey where you live, and that exposes you to pollens where you live. Have you found or read any research that supports this? Is this something you've seen your patients do?
Patients do tell me that raw honey makes them healthier, and honey, I think, has anti-inflammatory properties, but I really haven't researched it and can't say more. But I have patients who swear by the raw honey. Though I've had some bee sting allergic patients that have problems with it, but
oh, really?
I just have had a couple who've had issues, but patients say it makes a difference for them. And sometimes I wonder if it's just the power of persuasion.
Like a placebo effect?
Possibly. The placebo effect is very strong. It's not just in your mind. Studies have shown that it plays a big role in changing results. But otherwise, I have heard patients tell me that raw honey does help them. I just don't know the mechanism, so I can't really speak on it.
Got it. Well, that would be a fun research opportunity. Are you a fan of honey? Do you like using honey?
I love honey.
Well, you should figure out a research trial. You could maybe get a lot of good free samples.
I'll buy some myself.
If you don't want to, save yourself money via a research trial, I guess you can go buy honey. But hard transition, no smooth segue here. We can go to the first question that was part of this two-parter of this episode is, what made you want to be an allergist?
It's my own journey. I had really bad asthma as a kid. I was hospitalized when I was about 5 years old, and I was always on prednisone. Prednisone is the steroid to treat the asthma. And I think 1 year I was on it almost every day of the year. And I missed school a lot, and I missed a lot of functions. And I was fortunate to go to this allergist who was way ahead of his time. It wasn't fun those days because they used a lot more needles for testing, and they did it every year. I used to wait 4 hours every time I saw him in the office, and we drove an hour, sometimes 2 hours to get home in traffic.
Because he was in Boston?
Yes.
And you were in Providence?
Yes, and initially Warwick. And as I got older, I got better, and we got some medications that we would get in Canada before they were available here because he did research trials. But still, as I got older and better, he kept me out of the hospital. And when I went to med school, I would see people whose asthma wasn't as bad as mine living in the hospital. And so I was very fortunate, but my asthma controlled my life. I based how much I exercised and when I had asthma attacks. And so I made it my life's journey to be able to breathe better and to help people breathe. And for me, allergies were a big factor of my asthma. And my allergist is who treated my asthma. And I still personally feel that we understand asthma better than pulmonary because I feel the allergists always go after the root cause and the pulmonologists. The allergists were doing the research that recognized asthma was due to inflammation. 20 years before the pulmonologists recognized that asthma was not just a mechanical problem. It wasn't until the 90s that they recognized it, and the allergists were doing the training and the tests and studies in the 70s.
It wasn't until the 90s that the pulmonologists realized what the allergists realized in the 70s.
Yes, and they still don't focus on allergies. And it was funny, in med school, my advisor was a gastroenterologist, and we did a research trial on food allergies as a cause of irritable bowel syndrome was another one. And so they quoted me years later. So in medical school, my advisor tried to get me to become a gastroenterologist, and I really liked it until I ended up spending time in my allergist's office as an elective while I was in medical school. And it reaffirmed that's what I wanted to do. There was a point when I did my anesthesia rotation that I really liked it, but again, it confirmed what I wanted when I spent time in my allergist's office, and the rest is history, as they say. But as I was saying to Drew in this podcast earlier, sometimes just understanding what the patients are feeling, especially when they have frustration that someone's not really listening to them, I can differentiate why they're not responding to the treatment, because it may not be that it often is they don't truly have asthma, but they have shortness of breath and they're continuing to treat a prior diagnosis of asthma. And it's helpful when I can change the course of their trajectory, identify, again, the root cause, and get them on the right path to feeling better. It's a lot of fun and satisfying, and that's why I do what I do.
It's interesting that you had considered things like gastroenterology, because now, later in your practice, you're seeing how connected the gut is to allergies in different ways than I think even the intentions of that research project. Just kind of, I don't know, in my mind, sort of a full circle moment. But, I think this was a really cool episode. It was really great to learn more about different things you can take, but also just how holistic health is important to so many things, including allergies. But more than that, it's always, I think, helpful to hear personal stories, and the personal story of how allergy in and of itself and the practice of allergy and immunology is so personal to you. And I think that comes through in how helpful you are with patients and how effective you are as a physician, because it comes from a place of understanding, because allergies, asthma, immunology affected you so much that you can empathize in a way that maybe not every physician can or does. And it comes through in how helpful you are to your patients and how many people you cure or whose lives you significantly improve. But all that said, I wanted to thank everybody for checking out the show. Hopefully we answered the listener's question. If you're enjoying these conversations, subscribe so you don't miss new episodes. It also helps bring more people to find the show, which we really appreciate. Again, follow the link in our description and send your questions to myallergistdad@gmail.com so we can answer it on the show. Dad, any final thoughts?
No, I enjoy doing this. Who wouldn't like doing something with their son, who's also funny?
Thank you, listeners. Submit your questions, like, subscribe, help us get this show and this episode to people who could find this content really helpful for their allergies. All right. Have a great day.
If allergies got you down bad, then just ask my allergist, my allergist dad.
The My Allergist Dad podcast is for general informational and entertainment purposes only and does not constitute the practice of medicine, nursing, or other professional healthcare services, including the giving of medical advice, and no doctor-patient relationship is formed. The use of information on this podcast or materials linked from this podcast is at the user's own risk. The content of this podcast is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Users should not disregard or delay in obtaining medical advice for any medical condition they may have and should seek the assistance of their healthcare professionals for any such conditions.